Hey, everybody. Let me get my TikTok folks here too. Bam. Bam. Hello, all. Ooh. Hello. Hello, TikTok. Hello, YouTube. Let's see. I always like to see the first TikToker to come on. Let me see here. Kaylee Bird, you're the first person. Always enjoy seeing who the first person is on TikTok. Good to see you. Oh, good to see everybody. TikTok folks, YouTube folks. We've also got Facebook and Twitter. Maybe not as many. We get most of you guys from TikTok and YouTube. I've got both cameras set up. My phone for you TikTok folks. Hey guys, my computer for the YouTube folks. I always like folks to kind of just check in, say where you're from, maybe for the first minute. We wait a second anyway, just for folks to kind of, once it goes live, to know it's live so they can join in. So let's just take a minute, introduce yourselves, see where you guys are from. Australia, that's fun. 1 second here. Get my lights going. Where's this? Brightness. There we go. Light my screen up a little. Seattle, Anchorage, love Alaska. Spent a lot of time there over the years. Denmark. Oh, that's good. Good. I always like to see the non-Americans show up because I know we tend to have a biased American time for when we do these. Sorry about that. Ireland. Lovely. Australia. England. It's nice. Vancouver. Still haven't been to Vancouver. God, I've been dying to go to Vancouver. I know it's supposed to be wonderful. Aurora, Ohio is welcome too. England. Scotland. Austria. Nice. Italian and Austria. Even more interesting. This is good, guys. Well, I'm going to, I'll start doing my introductions because we're still got people joining in. As always, please follow me on whatever app you're on, TikTok, YouTube, etc., and follow your other creators too. It helps a lot it just helps a lot, and like their content and all of that. The other thing is for the YouTube folks, the super chat is a great way to get my attention with the comments. I promise, folks, I will get to the super chat comments for sure. Somebody on TikTok was just saying today they left me a comment that I didn't get to all the comments. I didn't get to their comment. The problem is the connection's being funky on TikTok. It better not be. But it's hard to get to all the comments. It's impossible to get to all the comments. You guys, on TikTok last night, I think I had like 100 questions lined up. And on YouTube, I had about the same. So usually I get to whatever I can. TikTok is frozen. Did TikTok unfreeze, guys? Let's see. Did TikTok unfreeze? TikTok I knew was being weird. Still not on. Let me turn it off and go on again. TikTok. It still might need to go off and restart. All right, guys. Shoot. All right. That was weird. Yeah, guys, we're giving TikTok's having a little glitch here. Let's see. That was very strange. I restarted TikTok. All right. Hey, guys, I just had to restart TikTok. On my end, it said it had a bad connection and then claimed it came back, but it clearly wasn't back. So I apologize. Yeah, TikTok is back now. Your YouTube friends jumped to your defense and said, it's not back on TikTok. So sorry about that. Yeah, TikTok gave me a weird internet message problem. So hopefully we're good. I was just doing general introductions. Say where you guys are from. I was just saying for questions on TikTok, you can use the question feature. And I just figured out how to use that last night. So I can actually highlight your questions on TikTok, which is nice. On YouTube, super stickers are great for just sending thanks, like Caden right there. Oh, thank you for that, Caden. I'll add that to my list for Vlad then, no problem. I'm writing this down for myself, $10. And super chat on YouTube, super chat is really good for putting the questions in so that I see them. We get so many questions. I think I was saying just as TikTok died, I get a couple hundred questions easily between both of these apps, easily a couple hundred throughout the chat. And there's no way to go through all of them. I can't even see all of them. So, on TikTok, use that question feature. I will scroll through and pick some at least. On YouTube, I will also scroll, but on YouTube, I promise if you use the super chat feature, I will do the super chat questions first. So with that, We can, you know what? TikTok, John. Okay, good. We'll start now. TikTok, we had a little glitch. Excuse me, the TikTok folks, but you're up to 2,500 now. So I will begin. YouTube, it's always small but mighty. I do know about that. I'm going to talk about it, Piotr. We're going to talk about that actually today. I will. So I'm not. Well, I will highlight Piotr's question because it comes in. So, guys, let me start. So today is. It is a big news day, but it is not an extensive news day, meaning I do not have half an hour of news to give you, but the news I've got to give you is really big, which is good because it'll allow us to do more questions, which is great. So yesterday, I had talked about how we were finally coming to the point where the Russians were getting on the defensive, how Russian troops had been on the offensive for a month and had been, pushing forward, especially north of Kyiv, the capital. The Russians were coming from the northeast and the northwest, and they wanted to take Kyiv, the capital, and they were getting stuck. And they were getting stuck for a variety of reasons. It's spring now in Ukraine. That means the ground, which used to be frozen, is now marshland. So the tanks can't move, the trucks can't move, and even for the soldiers, they're walking in mud. Right? That's the first problem. Second of all, the Ukrainians did something tricky with their dam in the north of Kyiv, the capital. They let the water go everywhere, so it's now flooded, and the Russians are stuck. Add that to the fact that the Ukrainians have been attacking for a month. We know they've been doing a great job, right? We already know that in Ukraine overall. And we know the Ukrainians have been destroying the Russian supply lines. So you've got the Russians that have not been resupplied with food, with water, with ammunition, and with gasoline. Their tanks, for example, tanks need gas. Every day or two, you got to fill up your tank with gas. Well, now comes that 40-mile convoy. Remember, you kept hearing about that 40-mile long convoy. At first, everybody was really scared. Then it got stuck. That thing is stuck until the next millennium at this point. It's not going anywhere. That convoy had food, water, munition, fuel. Nobody's getting it. So all those troops, those Russian troops that were coming from the north of Kyiv, the capital, and they wanted to come and just encircle Kyiv, and they were going to siege the capital and blow it up just like they blew up that poor city, Mariupol, in the south that we keep seeing about, where they just destroyed the whole town. Well, those troops in the north no longer have support, and they've been surrounded, or they're almost surrounded, by the Ukrainian troops. And what I was telling you yesterday was General Mark Hurtling, who is one of our top retired American generals. Hurtling was saying that those 10,000 Russian troops north of Kyiv, the capital, are on the verge of either being destroyed or captured because they are in such bad shape, and the Ukrainians cornered them, and they don't have any support. They aren't getting any reinforcements. They're not getting anything. So that brings us to today. So the big news today, and I've got Piotr's question here, which I'll just incorporate into what I'm talking about. Today, Russia announced victory today. Phase one, they held like a big military press conference. Phase one of the war is over. And you'll be surprised to hear Russia won. Russia is claiming that now, and this is great. Phase one of the war, you see, according to the Russians, phase one of the war was never about taking the capital of Kyiv. It was never about taking that town in the northeast, the second largest town in Ukraine, Kharkiv. So Kyiv, the capital, Kharkiv, the second largest town. It was never about trying to capture them. Sure, they've been going at them for a month. They've lost 20,000 troops, but that was never the intent. You see, the intent was to trick the Ukrainians or something and destroy the Ukrainian military. And the real intent was to now go to the east of Ukraine and to take the Donbass, these regions in the east that the Russians have been trying to cause to break away, and the Russians want to annex as part of Russia. So Russia now has basically declared victory after 15 to 20,000 at least of their troops are dead, after 30 to 40,000 of their troops are injured, after they have had so many Russian tanks and armored personnel carriers and attack vehicles and everything else and planes destroyed. And now the Russians are claiming they won. This is considered a huge victory for the Ukrainians. Now, this does not mean the war is over. This does not mean the Ukrainians will succeed in pushing the Russians out. What it does mean is the Russians seem to be admitting that they screwed up royally and they lost the first part of the war. And again, keep in mind, Putin lies. So this could all be just a lie. I mean, we know it's a lie that they won. They didn't win. But he also could be lying about not going after Kyiv, the capital, about not going after Western Ukraine. There's still concerns about that. So let's see what happens. What seems to be happening right now, at least, is the Russians have dug in. They've gotten themselves in a defensive position. I mean, think of World War I or something. You build trenches and you get down and hide. They've basically gotten down and they're hiding, and they're waiting for some kind of reinforcements. We do know that Putin has talked about some Russian troops from Georgia coming in, and whether that former Soviet Georgia, whether that's part of it, we don't know. But for now, the Russians are in bad shape. So that's the good news of today. Actually, I'll read you a quick little quote from General Hurtling. Hurtling, as I told you, is the American general retired who I really like his analysis on things. He's very good. And when he heard the Russians announcing that they won phase 1 and that this was all a trick, like it was all a trick, this invasion, we wanted you to think we wanted to take over the Ukrainian capital. And we wanted you to think we wanted to take over Kharkiv, that city in the northeast that the Russians have been bombing for a month. They didn't really want that town. They just let all their troops die. So anyway, Hurtling responds, "This is laughable. Unless Russia had a brilliant strategy of losing status on the world stage, killing 20,000 Russian soldiers, and losing the equivalent of 3 U.S. divisions in tanks, artillery, BMPs, which are infantry fighting vehicles. They're those vehicles that look like tanks that we keep thinking are tanks, but they're not. Those are BMPs, trucks, and several aviation wings for the purpose of a feint or deception, pure BS." So that's good news. I don't have a lot of bad news today, actually. Other good news. The U.S. is estimating that up to 60% of Russia's missiles aren't working. They're malfunctioning. Now, whether that means they don't take off at all, whether it means they don't hit their targets, but anything over 20% malfunctioning is considered a disaster. So this, again, is great news for the Ukrainians. I got more information. You guys raised the last couple of days, and I finally found more information about it today. It does appear, from what we're seeing, that a Russian commander did get attacked by his own troops. Whether he got killed or not, it's not clear. One report says they killed him. One report says they injured him so badly he had to go to the hospital and was given like the Medal of Honor or something. But the story seems to be that he got half of his men killed in his whole his whole unit he's got. And the men were so ticked at him that they waited until they had just the right moment and they were in their tanks and he was standing in front of them and they ran over him with their tank. So the guy either had died, according to one report, and New York Times or somebody I read actually has the guy's name. Like, I don't know if it was Mikolaev or something like that. They've got the guy's name. I mean, the one who was run over. So it looks like it's for real, at least in one case. Oh my God, I didn't even put this on here. The other story is another Russian general appears to have been killed. According to the Ukrainians, I believe this is General, thank you for the hat, by the way, I keep not mentioning that. I believe this is Ukrainian General number 7 now that has been killed. Not confirmed yet, but the other 6, I believe, are. Real quick on that, the idea with the Russian generals being killed, Russian general, is that the Russians have had such bad lines of communication with their troops that the generals have had to go to the front. Now, quick aside, because this is rather funny. I mentioned the other day that part of the reason the Russians are having a horrible time communicating with their troops is the system they use is based on the local 3G and 4G cell towers of the country they're invading. Well, what did the Russians do when they invaded Ukraine? They blew up the cell towers. So the Russians blew up the towers they needed to communicate with their own troops. So now the troops at the front have no communication with the leaders like back, hundreds of miles or even more so in Moscow to tell them what to do. So the generals have had to go to the front, the Russian generals, to actually see what's going on. The second problem is the generals had to go to the front because the troops are getting so decimated by the Ukrainians. The deaths are so high. We're talking U.S. estimates of 15,000 Russian dead in 1 month. There were only 14,500 Russian dead in Afghanistan in 10 years. That's twice the number of deaths the U.S. had in Iraq and Afghanistan in 20 years that the Russians had in 1 month. Right? So these generals are going to the front to try to buck up morale, and they keep getting killed. And part of the reason they think, and this is the end of this story, part of the reason they think they keep getting killed is because they're on those little phones they're using. Because they blew up the phone system and they can't use it, they've got to use unencrypted phones now. They can't use phones that are encrypted. They can't use their phones where their communication's private. So they're using phones where the communication's public, and the Ukrainians are listening and finding out their plans and finding out where the generals are and then blowing them up. So total disaster for the Russians. Piotr asked, Do you know about the Bucha pocket? That's what I've been talking about right now. Seems the Ukrainians surrounded about 10,000 Russians northwest of Kyiv and are pounding them hard. Exactly. So you've got these Russians north of Kyiv, the capital, 10,000. Looks like they're surrounded. Looks like they've been flooded by a dam the Russians let go, or the Ukrainians let go. They flooded these guys. They're trapped. They don't have reinforcements. They don't have ammunition. They don't have fuel. They don't have other Russians, and they're surrounded. Really interesting news. But again, don't get too excited because the Russians have still got lots of missiles. The Russians can still blow a lot of things up. It's just that the Russians now, it looks like at this point, it looks like the Russians are not going to be able to take over the entire country, which is great news. What else? Yes, actually, Wesley Clark warned, General Wesley Clark, who is the former Supreme Allied Commander of NATO, one of them, American general. And he warned today that we've still got to be careful because some of the best Russian forces are in the Donbass in the east. In other words, the region the Russians are now focusing more on, this region in the east that they want to steal from Ukraine and make part of Russia, they've got some of their best forces there, so that this fighting could be, the hardest for the Ukrainians. So just to keep that in mind. The only other two little news things I'll bring up, there was an update on the theater that the Russians bombed in Mariupol. Remember we keep saying a drama theater, because in English, a theater can be a cinema or a theater, but a drama theater where it was marked children on the outside of the theater on the ground, Detchi or something like that in Russian, and in big letters so that the planes flying over could see it. Well, the Russians bombed it anyway, knowing there were children inside. What the Ukrainians are now saying is they believe the total dead appears to be 300, which is actually quite good because they initially thought it might be 1,200 or more. They think that 600 survived and got out and 300 died. The reason they don't know yet is they still can't get into the rubble. It's still, their emergency services are gone. The Russians keep bombing and they have no longer any emergency services in that town because the town's been destroyed. So pretty much anybody who got out, and till the war is over, they're not going to know. The other, and then the commander. Yeah, it's a commander I told you they tried to kill. So that was my last update. See, I kept it short today. But as I said, really big news for not being a big news day. President Biden is in Poland. He met with the troops. It was very cute. They had pizza. I mean, it was a very nice photo op. But there wasn't any really news from it. That's why I'm not updating you on that. There just wasn't any news. So let me jump right in and check out the questions, because now we can maybe even do a good hour of questions since I was able to go through my news quickly. D, thank you. Caden, we've got Piotr, just scheduling through my questions here. Lori Keene. That's the question. Lori Keene asks, how will they capture 10,000 troops? That's exactly it. Well, I guess it's two questions. Capturing them may not be the problem. What do you do with them? I mean, you capture 10,000. Thank you, by the way. I always appreciate the TikTok gifts. And I always tell people, by the way, the TikTok gifts, they may look kind of fun and stuff, but they are also donations. So I appreciate it. So every time you do that, I think it's a little levity we can use. And it's also a donation. And I appreciate the donations for my work. So thank you all. Lori, the question may not be how do they capture 10,000 people, but what do they do with them? I mean, imagine having to do a prison camp for 10,000 Russians. I don't know whether the Ukrainians ever even planned on that. So who knows? The other question becomes, do they capture them or do they just try to destroy them? I would suspect right now they might be trying to destroy them, depending on the weaponry they've got and all of that. I mean, the Ukraine, like Russia, has got to figure out how much weapons do we use here versus how much weapons do we use here. And they know the big fight's coming in the east now. But if I were the Ukrainians, they may just be trying to take those troops out right now and not even go for capturing them unless they surrender. If they surrender with the white flag, then you've got to accept them as captured, of course, by rules of war. Little water. Another question here. Sorry, folks. I'm going through the super chat questions first, as I promised, and then I will go. Thank you for we're getting to the Easter season with the duck and the chick. Catherine, do you think there is support for Ukraine to reclaim stolen territories? Same for Moldova. I am not an expert on Moldova. I know the whole Transnistria thing and everything else. I know about it, but I'm not an expert. Very confusing. First of all, it depends what you mean by support, okay? Ukraine had Crimea stolen from it. And if you look at a map of Ukraine, you're going to see a peninsula in the south sticking into the Black Sea, and it's called Crimea. The Russians came in and stole it from Ukraine in 2014. Okay. What the Russians are doing now is they're trying to steal these two provinces in the east of Ukraine, right? Donbass and was it Luhansk in the eastern Ukraine. They want to steal it, make it part of Russia. And then they want a land corridor along the sea connecting the provinces in the east to Crimea like this, so that Russia, which is further east, can then, it would be Magna Russia. It would all be Russia. So Russia would continue through the eastern Ukraine. It would steal a corridor, and then Russia would continue in Crimea. So the question becomes, can all of that be returned? It depends what you mean by support. I mean, it depends how badly Russia loses and what the terms of a peace treaty finally are in the end. Russia's trying to claim that they want all this stuff given up to them. Certainly right now, if I were Ukraine, I'd say we get all our land back. We get Putin as a war criminal, and we get reparations. You have to rebuild our country after all the damage you did. But it's going to depend what's left. I think the other question for the Ukrainians isn't what they can get; it's also what they can accept. Because what Russia's been demanding, for example, so far is the Ukrainians have to accept legally that Crimea, the territory in the south that the Russians stole, is now legally Russia. And there's no way the Ukrainians are going to do that, especially after what Russia did now to their country. So that will be a big question. Chloe, thank you. Oh, Chloe just sent a thank you. Thank you, Chloe. So I'm going to guess that's Swedish kroner, which makes me think you're in Sweden, but I don't know for sure. Anyway, thank you. That was sweet of you. Let me scroll down. Okay, I've caught up with the questions there. I will look at my interaction questions on TikTok. Oh, are there? Yeah, sorry about that. There's an invasion of Russians over at the comments at TikTok. If any of the YouTube moderators can head over there. Sorry about that, TikTok. They're always much worse over there. It must mean we're doing a better job spreading the word at TikTok than we are over at YouTube. Sorry about that. Yeah, Wagner Group, I don't have much to add about that. I also think it's a little complicated to explain it with the lawsuit and stuff. Well, this is, okay. Old Grump 6, what are my thoughts on Putin going nuclear? Hello, Finland. Good to see you join us, by the way. So I have been one that thinks that Putin. I'm looking at Finland and thinking Putin because I saw Being Nancy saying she's from Finland. Putin. I like Putin. It sounds kind of like a little Putin. Putin. Although he's little anyway. I think he's 5'6" or 5'7", the man. So I have not been one that thinks that Putin is going to go nuclear. I think he's bluffing, and I think he's trying to freak us out, and I think he's doing it very effectively. The Russians, from back when they were the Soviets, one of the big things the Russians would always do was talk about nuclear war. And oh my God, there's going to be nuclear war. And of course, there's going to be nuclear war like the spoiled child, Russia portrays itself to be. If Russia doesn't get everything it wants, there's going to be nuclear war. Just like you get nuclear war with your kid who doesn't get everything it wants. And I think we've been hoodwinked, to use a old term, by Russia because our own government, which this annoyed me with Biden. I'm a Biden supporter. I like Biden. I think he's done an amazing job on the sanctions and getting Europe and the EU and Japan and our allies together. Amazing job. But he bought into Putin's talking point at the beginning, and Biden kept talking about World War III. If we get involved and we fight Russia, it's World War III. That is a Russian, previously Soviet talking point. And it is a talking point that on its face, and I've talked about this a lot, I won't go into too much now unless you guys want to talk about it later, but when you say engaging Russia militarily means World War III, what you mean is under no circumstance should we engage with Russia militarily. And if we shouldn't engage militarily under any circumstance, then why should we invade if Russia invades NATO? Right? If Russia were to invade Poland, if Russia were to invade the Baltic countries in the north, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, they're all NATO. But why should we get involved militarily? Because supposedly we were told it's the end of the world if we fight with Russia. It's World War III. It means nukes. So I don't like this argument we bought into because I think we've psyched ourselves out and it ticks me off. So that's my take on that. Doc Remington has an update. Hold on, remove this question now. Doc Remington, yes. And now yes, I did see more updates on Shogu. So Doc has an update on the Russian defense minister who has been missing in action for 2 weeks, popped up yesterday for a couple seconds on a video call with Putin, but a lot of people were suspicious that that it was fake, that they basically took a little video. Hi from Kyiv. Wow. Somebody from Kyiv just waited on TikTok. Hopefully I'm sure you're Ukrainian. The Russians aren't there yet. Thank you for joining us. And thank you for your courage there in Kyiv. We're all with you guys. Doc Remington, and now for our daily Shoigu update. 1 hour ago, it was reported, I did see this, that our favorite military fashion victim had a heart attack. How convenient. I saw that. There was a report an hour ago from the Ukrainians saying that the Russian defense minister, who clearly botched this entire invasion and has been missing for 2 weeks, appears to have had a heart attack, and that's why he's missing. Now, I saw that report from the Ukrainians, but didn't see it anywhere else, so I didn't actually put it on my list to talk about, but something happened with this defense minister. I mean, Putin's pissed. Now, mind you, Putin should be upset, but the question becomes, it's probably Putin's fault. I mean, Putin does not like people disagreeing with him. He's made that clear, and I think either his top defense and intelligence people told him how bad it was going to be in Ukraine and he didn't listen, or they couldn't tell him at all because that's who Putin is. He's the kind of boss you can't tell things to. I had a boss, my boss at the UN was like that. I always bring her up, but she was such a disaster. But exactly the kind of woman. I remember once she wanted me to give her a suggestion or something I raised to her, and she always got mad. This woman was the head of communications for UNDP, horrific human being, horrific bully. And I brought some issue to her, and this reminds me of Putin. I brought some issue to her, and she goes, well, you don't tell me your opinion. Tell me what you think we should do. And mind you, I had no idea what to do. I'd been there like a week. And she also, I realized, had no idea. She goes to me, tell me what, and I said, well, and I stopped and I figured I'm going to be honest to her because my sister always says you should have been honest with her. And I said, I don't give you my opinion lest you anger. And I literally, now any native English speakers know that is not a normal, it's a correct phrase in English, but it's not a normal phrase in English, lest you anger. Because she was such a lunatic and such a, so this is the Putin problem. When you get somebody who's a jerk as your boss, who's basically incompetent at their job, and I would say corrupt as well for both of them, their staff doesn't actually want to tell them the truth about stuff because it's easier just to make them happy and let them be just, fat, dumb, and happy is the expression, but dumb and happy. Because maybe they won't beat you up, or in Putin's case, maybe they won't kill you, or in my old boss's case, maybe they won't make you cry that day. So anyway, very interesting though. Yeah, the update on the general. Let me pull up another question on TikTok. And as I've said, for the folks on YouTube, I will give preference for any of the super chat questions. Otherwise, I'll scroll on the other ones. And the super chat questions keep me going with my work, so I appreciate it because they're donations anyway. So thank you for that. Lucas Schaefer asks, if the Ukrainians take Kherson, which is in the south, back, will Mariupol be next? So this is interesting, these stories today. So Kherson in the south is a Ukrainian town that was the first town to, thank you, TikTok people, that was the first town to fall to the Russians. And now there were reports today from the New York Times saying that the Ukrainians had recaptured Kherson. There were other reports with the Ukrainians themselves saying, we didn't recapture it. There seems to be at least pushback, I would say, looking at all the news reports, that in addition to what's going on in the north now, how the Russians are being pushed back in the northern suburbs of Kyiv, it looks like they may be being pushed back out of some of these towns in southern Ukraine as well now, like Kherson. Now, Mariupol is the other town in the area. Both of these towns are important. For anybody who was on earlier, we talked about how one of Russia's big objectives, well, Russia's earlier objective was to take the whole country. They lost. They screwed that one up big time. Now their objective is to steal eastern Ukraine, a slice of southern Ukraine, and then connect it to Crimea. Crimea is the territory they stole in the south in 2014, and they want to create a land bridge to steal land along Ukraine's border with the Black Sea, steal eastern Ukraine, and make all of that Russia, right? Well, Mariupol and Kherson in the south are key to that. There's two of the really key cities. First, they got Kherson. Now it looks like they may have lost it or they may be losing it. Mariupol, the problem is that's the town where they've got this movie theater that they destroyed. I believe that's the town. I'm pretty sure. That's the town where they destroyed the maternity ward. Mariupol is gone. They've destroyed 90% of that city. I mean, there are still, I think, a couple 100,000 civilians probably in trouble needing food and water there because the Russians cut off food and water and heat 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago now. But, it is it is possible. I think what we still need to see is clearly there was enough confusion today that it wasn't totally clear what the Ukrainians had gotten back or not. The best I can say is it seems that the whole narrative of today is the Ukrainians were pushing back more, and the Russians were retrenching, were on the defensive more. So that's good news. The question becomes, will the Russians bring in more troops? Will more troops come from Georgia? The explosion in the south yesterday, when it looks like the Ukrainians, we think it was the Ukrainians, blew up that huge Russian ship that was bringing supplies into the south, into the Black Sea there. And the Russians were bragging about it 3 days ago. They did video, they had drone footage of the ship arriving, and the Russian press had his drone in the air showing the live footage of this beautiful ship that can bring tanks and men and blah, blah, blah. And the Ukrainians just blew it up. They blew it up. Nobody knows how. It's gone. I mean, it's gone. So, we'll see. But when that went, so went a lot of the supplies for the Russian troops in the south. So what the Ukrainians have been doing very smartly is they keep blowing up the Russian supplies. I mean, they're killing Russians who also would have been people supplying, so to speak, like supplying more men. But they keep blowing up the food and water. They keep blowing up the fuel, and they keep blowing up the munitions, like that 40-mile long convoy in the north that just got killed in place. I mean, it's gone now. If it's there, it's just been abandoned. And all of those supplies were supposed to go to the troops in the north. It's gone now. So really interesting, really interesting. All right, remove that question. Boom. Do we have anything? Okay, we don't have, nope, nothing else here. I will then let me look for another TikTok comment because I do often go to YouTube and not TikTok. We don't know yet. JP Mered asks, what are the chances of Putin being overthrown? People still think it's slim, although my guess is it's better than it was before. Putin is a dictator, and he's a vicious dictator who kills his opponents and poisons them with tea and other things, and puts them in prison. He is considered to have a pretty tight yoke on his country and on the people around him. So the concern, not the concern, but I think when everybody talks about could Putin be overthrown, there's a lot of thought that he's such a good dictator. It's very hard to overthrow a really good dictator unless literally the country rises up. But the people around him are usually so well chosen. So I don't think anybody's talking yet about that being a possibility. I still think the military has got to be livid at what Putin did, because Putin has made the Russian military look like they are, the word paper tiger is used, but basically they don't even matter. I mean, somebody wrote in a comment on TikTok yesterday in one of my videos, and they wrote the comment and said, I can't believe I spent 10 years in the 1960s hiding under my desk from these people. That's in other words, the air raid sirens, the nuclear bomb alerts, that we feared these people when their military was nothing. Obviously, their nukes are not nothing, or we think their nukes are not nothing. Who knows, right? Their nuclear weapons could be in bad shape too. But yeah, so I don't think we can count on him being overthrown, although, might be a good thing if he was. The only problem is let me try to get rid of this. You've got to see who comes next. That's the one danger with overthrowing people. You want to be very careful at who comes next so it's not somebody worse off. Let me see here. Daniel, the Daily Daniel O'Neill. I really hope there's some serious covert missions happening in Ukraine by the British and the U.S. Putin plays dirty. He needs to be beaten at his own game. What's your gut feeling? Good question, a good observation. It's funny. I go both ways on this. My gut is that boat blowing up in southern Ukraine yesterday, the Russian boat, it would be very interesting if some Navy SEALs from America, Britain, France, or someone else helped, right? It would be very interesting. Because it was very mysterious, and Ukraine isn't saying, and nobody's saying what happened. And it just makes me wonder if they got some help. Having said that, the Ukrainians have shown they're pretty darn constructive and creative and effective with their military, so they didn't necessarily need our help, right? But water first. I would hope we are helping them covertly. My concern is Biden. And again, I say this as somebody who tends to support Biden, but Biden is so scared of getting into a confrontation with Putin, and I think he really is, that I fear that Biden would not approve any such mission out of fear that our guys would get caught, and they would get caught on a mission blowing up a Russian ship, and that would be an act of war from America, and America's at war. So my gut tells me Biden wouldn't have, I don't want to say the backbone, but I think he's been too much of a dove on this. I think he bought into Putin's nuclear war garbage. And by the way, I mean, nuclear war. Like, we have nukes too, right? I mean, that's been kind of driving me nuts in this whole debate, that we're literally letting Russia get away with Russia's got nuclear weapons. What do we do? Well, if Russia nukes us, it's the end of the world. Russia isn't going to nuke us. I mean, literally, unless it's Dr. Strangelove or something with like Putin there, or, Putin in his bunker, like the end of the Hitler movie, where he has like nothing left to lose. I don't see Putin launching nukes when he knows we're going to launch nukes in response. That's what's been bothering me about this whole nuclear hysteria I keep hearing in America, at least. I don't know about in Europe, but I'm hearing way too many people I like and trust, and certainly pundits on TV. Oh, World War III. It's as if they discovered World War III a month ago. It was no problem. Oh, it was no problem. Actually, not even a month ago, 2 weeks ago. It was no problem sending Ukraine all those weapons to kill Russians. That was okay. But sending them planes to kill Russians, that's World War III. Sending them javelins, which are the shoulder-launched missiles to blow up their tanks and kill them, that's okay. That's not going to cause nuclear war. And you're like, why wouldn't that cause nuclear war too? So, I do not mean to diminish nuclear war, but I think we've somehow let Putin psych us out, and I'm not happy about it. How long will it take to rebuild Ukraine after Russia is out? Who helps pay for the infrastructure? How long? I have no idea. I mean, that's the kind of thing that's going to be years or a decade, I would think. I mean, God, who's going to pay? The goal would be to have Russia pay, clearly. The question is on what terms the war ends on, right? So I don't know whether you can get Russia to pay, but the West is going to have to kick in a lot of money. I don't know how much we're all going to kick in, though. It's going to be interesting to see. Right? Because that's still, I think it's a lot of money. But I think there's not going to be a choice but for the world to pitch in. I would imagine there'd also be just a lot of donations for like people like us, but I don't know whether that comes to more than $1 billion or something. You know what I mean? Like, that's a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money when you've destroyed an entire country. They're going to need, I don't even know, hundreds of billions, I would think, to rebuild the country, and it's going to take years. So, let's see. But I think absolutely, if there is a way of holding Russia responsible, we need to hold Russia responsible. We have to. Sarah asks, we have to be helping. They are using 20 years of urban warfare we have learned from quagmires and failed operations and in ways we never did. Wait, which they do you mean? You mean the Ukrainians? She says, they are using 20 years of urban warfare we have learned from quagmires and failed operations and in ways we never did. Oh, well, okay, I see what you mean. They've also, I think you mean the Ukrainians, probably. The Ukrainians have obviously taken a lot of tactics from watching our experience in the Middle East, Iraq and Afghanistan, and some of the failures we had. I saw the other day that the Ukrainians are now using IEDs, the improvised explosive devices, which were those sort of little mini homemade bombs along the side of the road that would blow up vehicles. Clearly, the literal quagmire in the north, where the Ukrainians just did something with their dam where they let the water go through, and now it's flooded the area. That clearly is urban warfare, so to speak. There's also, by the way, with urban warfare, if you're into urban warfare, meaning if the topic interests you of how do people fight wars in cities, like if the Russians were to go into Kharkiv or into Kyiv, the capital, how would they fight block to block? There's a great expert on Twitter called John Spencer, and he has been writing updates. He wrote a whole guidebook. I mean, he's an expert on urban warfare, but he wrote a whole guidebook that he had translated into Ukrainian that he's got out there for everyone to share. And he's been putting out like daily fact sheets and things to help the Ukrainians, which is very cool. Thank you, and very nice of him. All right, scrolling down. Let me go and anonymous. Who raised that real quick? Oh, user without a name. All right, if you put a name, I would have used your name. User 72083 on TikTok says, "What about anonymous?" So anonymous did more stuff today. Anonymous is the hackers collective, right? People often think anonymous the hackers, the computer hackers, basically internationally. People often think they're an organization and like a person, but they're not. I learned this years ago. I didn't know either, but they're a collective. They're individuals around the world who loosely associate. Well, Anonymous said today that it hacked the Russian central bank, so like the bank of the Russian government, and published a bunch of its documents online. And they published stuff. I'm definitely not clicking on any links with Russian stuff in it, that's for sure. But I'm sure our CIA and all of our government's intelligence folks are looking very, very heartily at that. So yeah, that's the latest on Anonymous. Now, Sarah just put up really quick on YouTube, Cities Under Siege, the New Military Urbanism book by Stephen Graham is an amazing book as well for urban warfare. Okay, it's, again, if the TikTok folks want to know, Cities Under Siege is the name by Stephen Graham. It's a very good urban warfare book. Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, Anonymous did hack the Russian central bank and did a big data dump. So that's good on them. What else oh, sorry, you're right. Let me go to the questions. Q&A on TikTok. See, I'm being much better about taking the TikTok questions because I did not know how to do this with you guys. We're learning our tech. Well, that's a tough one. Wiley Fam asks on TikTok, what do you think other countries can do to help? One big thing is they still need money. They are, in talking to, our Ukrainian friends over there, in hearing my Ukrainian friends here in the West that are from Ukraine and are coordinating stuff, people are running low on food. They're running low on food and medicines. And one of the way they're getting it is by getting money into the country. PayPal apparently has been very effective. That's what we've been doing via my TikTok. We've been raising money on and just sending it through my friend Vlad. And I will one of these days do this with you guys on YouTube. I'll remember to put it up there, but it's in my profile link, which the moderators will put on here. They always put it up for me anyway, and I always forget, but I will put here. I'll put the banner up anyway. But if the moderators can post this as well in the chat, and on TikTok, you can find it in my profile. Click on the beacons link, the URL in my profile, and you'll see one of the links says to donate for Ukrainian help via my friend Vlad, Vladimir in Ukraine. And Vlad has been getting money to people directly in need. He himself is a refugee in the country, but he's been helping other people, including we got about, actually, I put the total up today on TikTok. We've gotten like $14,909.61, I think was the total so far you guys have donated. And Vlad gave a nice chunk of that to what I will call a soup kitchen, for lack of anything else, in Kharkiv, the second largest city, the one that's been just destroyed by the Russians in the Northeast. And people there, they don't have food. They don't have clothing. They don't have medicine. And there's a volunteer group that's gotten together that's making food. It's delivering the food, and it's delivering it with clothes and medicine as well to people, because people, either they can't get out of their homes because everything's bombed, or they're in bomb shelters. And if you think about it, if you're in a bomb shelter, how many pairs of clothes do you bring with you? I didn't even think of this because, the kind of things people say first world problems, the kind of things you never think about. But if the air raid sirens are going off, I'm not bringing I'm bringing my dog. I'm not bringing my change of clothes. So, a lot of your donations went to help that, which is great. So I think, my suspicion is what they need right now from people like us is money. And what they need from our countries is as much weapons as we can get them. Obviously, they need more missiles. Missiles and planes are the big thing they keep asking for. One of the things I was reading about the missiles, which is interesting, is that the Ukrainian president had said, thank you, TikTokers. The Ukrainian president had said that he wanted like 500 missiles a day or something. And people were like, that's a crazy number. You don't even have that many airplanes to shoot down from the Russians. And what they're now thinking, General Stavridis, a former U.S. admiral who was the supreme allied commander of NATO. And Stavridis said today that he thinks the Ukrainians are using these missiles that normally would be used to take down aircraft, but because the Russians aren't launching as many aircraft, because the Ukrainians did such a good job contesting the airspace, that the Ukrainians are using the missiles to go after Russian weaponry on the ground. So whether it's artillery or something else, they're using these missiles in a different way, in essence. And that's why the Ukrainians want more of them, because it's not just about shooting planes. They want to go after the Russian weaponry on the ground that's destroying the weaponry and also destroying the Russian troops. Now, all right, Rebecca asks a question. Let me have a sip of water first. I can tell I'm going fast today. I shouldn't be talking so quickly, but I do. You know what happened, actually? I took a nap today, and then I had a little bit of chocolate that Casey, one of our folks, had sent me, and I think that it's very rich chocolate, and I think it put me into like orbit without me even realizing it. I'm like flying on chocolate right now. Rebecca asks, have you heard about the partnership announced between the U.S. and the EU for natural gas? What would the impact be here for Russia? Okay, that's interesting. There was something several weeks ago that had been announced or talked about the U.S. helping to, and again, I haven't read about this recently, but I had read something about the U.S. helping Europe develop natural gas ports, like places where you actually could dock for us to bring in the natural gas, and that we would ship natural gas from America, I believe, that would then be used to offset some of the oil and natural gas, I believe, as well, and coal too, I think, that the Europeans get from Russia. One of the biggest problems now with the sanctions, so to speak, is that Russia gets a ton of money from Europe via selling energy. The problem for Europe is they get so much of their energy from Russia that it is very difficult to just cut it off. Germany is the example I like to give. I believe Germany gets 40% of its energy from Russia. You can't just turn that off. It would literally like being saying 40% of America's energy disappears tomorrow. Well, first of all, imagine what that does to the price of energy nationwide, but also there wouldn't be enough energy and we'd have blackouts and brownouts. I mean, you can't just turn it off. So I know the U.S. was talking about helping with natural gas. I also know, and this was very good news, Germany, that gets a huge amount of Russian energy, has said that by midsummer, they expect to be free of half of their dependence on Russian energy, I think. And by the end of the year, most of it, I think. Now, midsummer might put us to July, August. From March, April, May, June, July, August, that's 4 or 5 months from now. This war could still be going 4 to 5 months from now. I would also argue, and I'll close the question with this, I would also argue that we've got to be thinking a lot further than just the next few months. We've got to be thinking further than just this war. Especially if you believe that we are at risk of nuclear war because Putin's crazy and he wants to use his nukes and he wants to use chemical and biological weapons, then the problem doesn't stop with Ukraine. We have a Russian leader who is itching to nuke the world. And if that's true, the world had better do a lot more than simply say, okay, we solved Ukraine, let's all go home and start treating Putin normally again, right? So I think Europe is going to need a long-term strategy, which I think we've all said for years, but a long-term strategy to get off of Russian oil and gas and coal as well, if they get it. But Germany, from what Germany's saying, it sounds like they're doing it. So, let's see. Yes, I don't know if people were still doing this. Just make sure you're careful. Lee Joe just said on YouTube that people can donate through Airbnb. And I did this. I told people I'm staying in Kharkiv this week. I have a room in Kharkiv. It's small. It's cute. Looks a little Soviet. It only cost me $14 or $15 US a night. I bought it for a week, $100. Airbnb is waiving their fees for Ukraine. And partially, I think, because they knew people were doing this to send money. And it's a way of getting money directly to Ukrainians by literally just buying their Airbnb rooms and booking them and then send them a note telling them you're not coming. Now, I will tell you two things to be careful of. You want to make sure first that you're not just, booking some big hotel. Having said that, big hotels are in trouble too in Ukraine. I mean, so any business could use your help. I literally took the cheapest, crappiest looking place I could find because it clearly was owned by somebody who's not rich. I mean, literally this place looked like it was out of the Soviet Union. And I rented it on purpose because I figured this guy doesn't have a lot of money. Very nice guy, sent me a really nice note back. It was very sweet. I think he even did it in English. I mean, rudimentary English, but it was very sweet. The other thing is because the story is out there, people using Airbnb to donate. So you've got to make sure it's a real listing. And what people are saying is be really careful, go through, check out who the host is, check out reviews the host has had, and make sure those reviews go back a long time so that it's not an account that was just created to scam people out of money for today. But otherwise, if you can do it, go for it. Yeah. I like I said, I keep getting the daily reminder on my calendar that and I think Airbnb maybe even sent a message asking me how my stay in Kharkiv was going. I'm like, oh, very well, thank you. Few bombs, but what do you do? One second. Let's go back to more TikTok questions. Thank you. TikTokers, Q&A. No real change. Odekai asks if there's been any change in the Russian protests. Not really. I mean, I haven't really seen much more on it other than Putin signed a new law today that increases the punishments for protesting or anything that's considered anti-war or whatever. So, but I haven't seen anything in the last couple of days on sort of mass protest or anything else in Russia. So I'm not sure about that, but it hasn't been in the news as much. So I don't know whether it's not happening as much or what. I don't think that's true. No. Allison asks, is it true the U.S. can stop any nuclear weapons before there's damage? No. I mean, I think, who knows? We would try. We've got some systems that we could try to shoot nuclear weapons out of the air. But, that's the whole issue. Remember, Ronald Reagan wanted to create the Strategic Defense Initiative that people called Star Wars. And it just didn't work really well. I'm not sure what the latest of it is, but I do know that it's not as if we have a functioning system that for sure protects us from all nuclear weapons. No. And mind you, one of the other concerns about Ukraine is that he can use tactical nuclear weapons, which are smaller nuclear weapons. Now, I heard today on the news, which was interesting, that when we say smaller nuclear weapons, we could be tricking ourselves a little because a smaller nuclear weapon that they would use in the battlefield could be something that like 2/3 of the size, so 66% of the size of the bomb we dropped on, Hiroshima in World War II. That would be a small nuclear weapon. So even for small, that's pretty scary. So, and that's hard to stop because it depends how it's delivered. Is it delivered from an airplane? Is it delivered from a missile? Is it on a truck? Is it a rocket? Right? I mean, so, it depends. I will look at a few more of the questions here on YouTube. And remember, YouTube, if you want, you go ahead and do the super chat. It'll let me see your question quicker. And frankly, it is a donation, which I appreciate because I've decided, I've told you guys this before, but for the time being, this is what I'm doing. I am going to do, Cinnamon Control asks, I'm just going to keep doing the Ukraine updates because I think this is important. And I like that this has been a really great community we've had. This has been really nice to see. So Cinnamon Control asks on YouTube, any real chance of the population rising up in Russia? We talked about that earlier. Not yet. I mean, one of the things, let's put that in context for tonight, for example. At the beginning of the show, we talked about the Russian Defense Department, the Defense Ministry, saying that, Russia has now won phase 1 of the war. Russia is victorious, and now they're going to phase 2. And just totally lying because phase 1 of the war was to take over Kyiv, the capital, in 3 days. Remember, it's been a month now. In 3 days, they were going to take the capital, and they were going to take Kharkiv in the northeast. They probably were going to eventually go to the west as well, and total disaster. So now they've changed that totally, and now they're saying, we have denazified Ukraine, and they're claiming they destroyed the Ukrainian military, that now the Ukraine doesn't have a military anymore, they're claiming. I mean, it's insane stuff. And now we can focus on the east and protecting the Russian citizens in eastern Ukraine. The problem I saw with some of the experts on TV today is that the Russian people don't know any better. Young kids have access to the internet. So they're kind of getting the news like we're getting the news, on social apps and everywhere else on the web, and they know how to get around the censors. Their parents don't. So their parents are simply getting the Russian news in the evening, and the Russian news in the evening is lying to them. And if that Russian news says, the latest figure, by the way, either 1,000 or 1,400 war dead, they're claiming, and that's it. Our estimate is 15,000, maybe even 20,000 war dead by the Russians, meaning the number of Russian troops killed. The Russians are claiming a little over 1,000. So they're saying victory is ours. We defeated the military. Ukraine now no longer has a military. We killed the Nazis, and now we're going to save the Russians in eastern Ukraine. And the problem is there's a lot of Russians who might believe that. And if they believe it, then why have an uprising if your glorious dictator did what he said and defeated the bad guys and didn't even lose any of our troops without knowing that your troops are just decimated, your military was made to look, impotent, so who knows? Who knows? There was another one here. Hannah, thank you. Hannah just simply did a sticker. We like that too. Let me look for another question on TikTok. I'm trying to, as I said, go back and forth and back and forth. Q&A. Oh, wait, what was that? Let me see here. We don't know the number. Isaac Thomas asked how many Ukrainian forces have died. We don't know. Now, the Ukrainian government understandably isn't putting out estimates of how many of its people have died because it's fighting a war for survival, and it doesn't do it any good to tell its own people, increased numbers each day of who's died. That's just depressing. My suspicion is, and I think it's probably a very good suspicion, that the U.S. isn't putting out any estimates of Ukrainian dead because, again, it would only help the Russians. I don't know what the numbers really are, but if they were large, if they're small, that's great. But if they're large, then it's going to risk making Ukrainians depressed, and it gives the Russians a real propaganda talking point because then they could say, even America says this number of Ukrainians have died in the war, Ukrainian troops, haha. And if America says it has got to be true, and then the Russian people go, yeah, and then the Ukrainian people go, eh. So I don't think we're going to find out. Not until the war is over. I don't think we're going to find out. And again, like I said, our side has no interest in helping them. Putin's health, haven't heard anything new on Putin's health at all. Arresting Putin. Let's talk about arresting Putin. So Marvel Fanatic asked this. Good question. It comes up every day, and I have been doing more research on this. Quick sip of water. So the question being asked here is, can international law be changed to arrest Putin? Now, the issue isn't necessarily international law itself. The question we're talking about is war crimes, and if Putin can be held accountable for war crimes. Now, the problem becomes, how do you prove it? What you can prove is you can prove that war crimes were committed, right? Enough has happened. I mean, I'm a lawyer, so I shouldn't say right. You actually have to get the prosecutor is there already from the International Court in The Hague. They've sent, they're the court that does the investigations of war crimes. They're already there. They're already investigating. They're looking at Ukrainians. They're looking at Russians. They're looking at everybody to make sure, anybody who's committed a war crime is held accountable. But they've got to first find proof of the war crime, find that it was intentional, right? Unintentionally killing civilians isn't necessarily a war crime. Not necessarily. So they need to find that it was intentional. And then to actually charge somebody by name, you have to find out that he or she was involved in that attack and that they knew, right? Or that they didn't care that civilians were going to be hit. So, for example, let's take that drama theater. Excuse me, I had some Greek meatballs before our before our little talk tonight, and now I've got a little Greek meatball in the chest. One of Mom's many recipes from my grandmother and my mom. But let's take that theater, the theater the Russians bombed that had the word children written outside. Sure looks like a war crime. You would have to find out who were the pilots. Who are the pilots by name so you can actually indict them, issue an arrest warrant? Are they even alive? Who were their commanders? Did the pilots' commanders know that the pilots were going to bomb a place full of children that was clearly marked children? Did the generals overseeing those commanders know, so you could go after those generals? And finally, did Vladimir Putin and the defense minister know that the general and the commander and the local pilot were going to bomb these kids? All of that becomes very difficult to prove because you do have, it's like a typical court of law. The crime has been done. And I will say this as a lawyer, it is possible that the local troops on the ground committed the crime and somebody back in Moscow didn't know. Having said that, it sure does seem to happen a lot that Moscow always commits these crimes. So I cry foul on the notion that Putin didn't know. Nonetheless, you've got to prove it. So the problem isn't really changing the law. The problem is it can be very difficult to prove war crimes because you've got to prove intent of somebody very high up the rank. And how do you prove Putin's intent? You'd have to pretty much find other people who would turn on Putin and tell you and say, oh yeah, let me off the hook, and I'm going to tell you about all the private meetings we had with Putin, and I'm going to show you the documents where I told him, and he said, don't worry about killing civilians. That would be how you'd get somebody like Putin. And then the final question, which is the end of your question there, is arresting him. You've got to get personal jurisdiction, which in the law means like literally physically get the person. And to physically get them, typically you've got them to leave they've got to leave their country. So you'd have to have an arrest warrant or an indictment, an arrest warrant, and then get them in a country where they can be arrested. So none of it's easy, but it doesn't mean it's impossible, right? We did it with former Yugoslavia. We did it with Chile and other places too. Actually, and I saw somebody talking about five generals. The number of generals now, oops, let me get this question off, appears to be 7 generals, Russian generals that have died. 7, believe it or not. Big deal. Let me pull up here. Piotr in Poland. Dmitry Medvedev, always have a hard time pronouncing him, who's one of the top Russian leaders, was sort of good opposition 20 years ago, now kind of more Putin-y. Medvedev publicly stated, the decision to conduct the hardest special operation against Ukraine, including attacks on peaceful cities, was made solely by the Russian president. Oh, that's interesting. When did he say that? When did he say that? He actually said, wow. That's an interesting I'd be curious to see that statement in context. I mean, I don't speak Russian really. I've studied it, but I don't know enough Russian to understand that. But you'd want to see in content what it means. But as Piotr is saying, that's the kind of stuff potentially that would be evidence against Putin, because he's saying the president made the decision to attack peaceful cities. That becomes one piece of evidence in a much larger pattern of evidence. So yeah, that's very interesting, Piotr. Very interesting. Trisha asks, how do you think Russia will explain tens of thousands of soldiers gone? No kidding. Sip of water, great question. What Trisha is asking is, excuse me, and I talk to you rudely with ice in my mouth. It gets very dry doing these talks, so that is why I'm always sipping my water. What Trisha is really asking is, Putin is now continuously lying to the Russian people. They're telling them that their war is going really well. And as of today, they're saying like 1,000 troops have died, 1,500 troops have died. Well, we know the U.S. estimates 15,000 troops, could be less. General Hurtling today said 20,000. I mean, our generals clearly think it's way more than 15,000 Russian troops are dead. And again, to put in context just how many troops that is, that's in 1 month in Ukraine, Russia lost twice the number of troops the U.S. lost in Iraq and Afghanistan in 20 years. Okay? And Iraq and Afghanistan was, big loss of troops, very painful for America. That was over 20 years, and we only lost half of what Russia lost in a month. Then compare Afghanistan for Russia. Huge loss for Russia in Afghanistan in the 1980s. The Russia invaded, and it was a 10-year-long war. And what happens? Russia loses. Russia loses 14,500 men in Afghanistan over a 10-year period. They've probably lost more than that now over a month. So the problem becomes, as Trisha asked, how do you hide that from people? How do you say we won the war and we've only lost 1,000 people when you've really lost 15 or 20,000? How do you say that? And what about people coming home? One of the things I noticed in Washington, D.C., and now it probably is more like 7 or 8 years ago, we suddenly started to have an influx in D.C. of young guys in their 20s who were very healthy and fit that were missing arms or legs. And it was the strangest thing to see, because you'd be at my elevator here in my building a couple years ago, and a guy had those mechanical legs that sprinter in South Africa had before he was convicted of murder, but those kind of wild legs. And I was asking about them because he was telling me about them. They're very cool. But I didn't ask. I think he was in the war. We had neighbors who lost their arms and had mechanical arms. And you saw a lot of young people with missing limbs and out of nowhere. And they were also white. I mean, everything about it was suggestive that this was a military loss. So You're going to have the same thing in Russia now. You're going to have 30,000 troops at least injured now, at least people think, and they're going back home. How do you explain the deaths? I mean, either these guys are dead, or what are you going to say? They didn't die? And then the families, they never come home? Now, you're right. I could see Russia saying they're POWs. I could see Russia doing that. That's actually would probably be the smart play, where they say, oh, those evil Ukrainians won't let them go. You know, we'll get them in a future war. But these parents aren't stupid. And we've already seen that even though the Russians are not collecting a lot of their war dead, the Ukrainians are going out of their way to collect the Russian war dead. I was seeing some news broadcasts in southern Ukraine where, you know, the Russians are just destroying these towns. I mean, they are just destroying these people. But what do these people do? They're still collecting the Russian troops, and they're putting them in like freezer cars to keep the bodies fresh so they can eventually return them to Kyiv and return them to their families in Russia. Imagine these guys killing your families, what they've done, destroying 90% of your town, right? Blowing up children on purpose. And you find their bodies, and rather than leaving the bodies, as a regular civilian, you say, let's collect these bodies, let's put them on ice, let's waste our own gas, right? We're rationing now because there's nothing. Let's use our own gas to run these trucks to keep the Russian bodies on ice for a couple months to give them back to their families. That, like, they are a better human being than I am over there in Ukraine, you know? But my point in bringing that up was, I could see a situation where the Ukrainians are returning thousands of bodies to the Russians, and then the Russian government's trying to claim they're not dead when the Ukrainians have returned them, and the Russian government tries to claim the Ukrainian government is holding POWs when the Ukrainian government is actually returning thousands of dead that it meticulously collected and kept on ice for months, which was a really generous thing to do. So Russia's going to lie. The question is whether Russia will get away with lying. Who knows? Debbie, thank you. Tony W., another sip of water. We'll go another 10-ish minutes for questions, guys. We're doing pretty well today. Tony W. asks, a lot of QAnon conspiracy theories during the 2020 election are anti-Ukraine, and how Ukraine is the seat of pedophilia. Really? Oh, God. Linked with Biden and Clinton. Now I know why Russian propaganda to convince Americans that Ukraine is evil. Yeah, I didn't know that. QAnon is this crazy conspiracy thing we've got going on in the States, and it's unfortunately gotten a little too much credibility, but it's insane. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're connecting themselves now to trying to go after Ukraine too. I mean, they're conspiracy nuts. You know, they're conspiracy nuts. Now, Annabelle mentioned the 6 generals dying. What was this saying? Annabelle, real quick. 6 generals died. And we're hearing today 7, by the way, the latest number from Ukraine. They're saying they just killed a 7th Russian general. Put it in the TV because I didn't have any choice, and they showed the funeral. I'm pretty sure that's embarrassing. Oh, that's interesting. They had a funeral. Huh. Well, what do you do? Oops, scroll down. All right, let me look at TikTok questions again. You TikTokers, you beautiful TikTokers. Scrolling. Whew, here's an interesting one. The Howie Frank, these names always crack me up. The Howie Frank, I guess, asks, why do the Russians want Chernobyl? So Chernobyl, you'll recall, is the failed nuclear reactor that melted down. The largest nuclear the largest nuclear accident in world history, still bigger than Fukushima. Fukushima, remember the one in Japan when the tidal wave knocked out the power and it melted down? Even that wasn't nearly as bad as Chernobyl. So Chernobyl was 1986 when Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union, melts down, huge disaster. They encase the reactor in a sarcophagus, they call it, of cement and God knows what else, to basically just encase it forever, to hopefully just keep the radiation, the poison encased, right? Well, the Russians, when they invade, go right for Chernobyl and start shooting at it. And there was even video a few days later from the control room at Chernobyl where the people running it are on the microphone with the Russian troops saying, Russian troops, stop firing at us. This is a nuclear facility. You're going to cause a massive nuclear accident. The Russians knew it was Chernobyl. They knew what it was. They fired on it anyway. I think it's right north of Kyiv, by the way. So if you've got Well, here, let's pretend this is Ukraine. Kyiv is in the north, the capital. You go this way, you've got Belarus. You go this way, you got Russia. Russia's only like 250 miles or so, a little less than 250 miles from Kyiv. Chernobyl is just north. Couldn't tell you how many, but I'm going to say 75, 100 miles maybe, but it's just north of Kyiv. And the Russians came in just guns blazing. They did the same thing at a second Russian plant, a second Ukrainian plant called in the town of Zaporizhia. And I think they're trying to blow it up. I think they were trying to blow it up. They wanted to blow it up so there was a huge ecological disaster. They were going to blame it on the Ukrainians. Remember how the Russians kept talking about chemical and biological weapons? They would have claimed that this was some weapon or something. I mean, who knows? But they would have absolutely blamed it on the Ukrainians. That was, I think, Putin's initial ploy, and he wasn't successful. He's still playing games. He's still trying to create a disaster. The UN was warning today that the staff at Chernobyl, first of all, the staff, I think, working there, I think has been stuck there for 10 days, I think. Or at least 10 days. They haven't let these guys out. They've been working for like a good 2 weeks. They're exhausted. They need replacements, and the Russians couldn't care less. They're also now blowing up the homes of the staff in the neighborhoods. It's crazy. So I think the Russians would be very happy to have these plants blow up. The other issue is Zaporizhia, for example, and I'm forgetting now, either it's 20 or 40% of Ukraine's energy comes from the Zaporizhia nuclear plant. I'm forgetting which amount it was. Either way, it was a huge percentage, and the Russians want to, at the very least, control it so they can turn it off. Because look what the Russians are doing. They're trying to starve everybody to death. They're trying to freeze them to death. So if they can turn off the power, the people, they want the people to stop fighting back and to cave and basically say, yes, our Russian overlords, we love you. We love big Putin. Please rescue us from our government. And it's not happening, but that's what they want. And Richard Fisher clearly doesn't know me well enough to be asking a March Madness question. I am the last person you ever want to ask about sports. Feel free to have that discussion in the comments, any of you, but I couldn't even tell you if that's basketball or what that is. I am so bad at sports. Sorry, Richard. Appreciate the contribution, though. Let's look for, now I'm going to look for another question on YouTube, since we've been doing a lot of you TikTok guys. Yeah, I've been going to the Q&As. That's what I've been doing. Thank you. Thank you, moderator, for mentioning that, Flaherty. Yeah, this is I had heard too. Joseph Thomason says the Russians have put a supply depot at Chernobyl, meaning supplies for their troops. So Ukraine can't bomb their military supplies. They also kidnap the workers and are shelling the town where they live. That's what I was just saying. Yeah, the news today was they're shelling the town where the workers live, but also, correct, the Russians, this was reported maybe even a week ago, the Russians took over Chernobyl and started using it as a base for their supplies. Because the Ukrainians have done such a good job blowing up the Russian supplies and stopping the supplies from getting to the Russians, they're now putting their supplies in the Chernobyl nuclear plant. So in order for the Ukrainians to blow it up, they'd have to blow up the whole nuclear plant. So they're using nuclear hostages in essence. And frankly, holding Europe hostage because Chernobyl explodes and it drifted. The first time Chernobyl drifted across Europe, it could drift north to Russia. It could drift north to Belarus. It could drift west to Poland. I mean, anything could happen. They don't care. Horrible. All right, guys, we're hitting the end of our questioning here. I'm being very good. We'll do another question on TikTok. I'm stopping at quarter after for the questions. I said I'm going to try to keep it to an hour and 15 for the substance. And then afterwards, we hang out and talk. And actually, it's been quite fun to hang out afterwards. We've had at least 1,000 TikTokers and several hundred YouTubers who just hang out for a while, and we all just chat about other stuff. So feel free to join us if you like. One moment to find more of the questions here. Red Storm Rising. Somebody says, Captain Supremio, why is this just like Clancy's Red Storm Rising? I read it, but I don't remember the book now. I read that thing. Oh my God. I want to say when it came out, was it 30 years ago? I don't even remember. I did hear about the Red Cross. Let's talk briefly about the Red Cross. Smurfette answers, did you hear about the Red Cross? The Red Cross is getting a lot of pushback for a variety of reasons. And I'll Elsmont, I'll do. That's hilarious. Okay. That's very funny. We'll tell really quick. Elsman just wrote in that if you type in the website loser.com, it connects you to Putin's Wikipedia page. Is that true? Somebody try it and let me know. But loser.com, does it take you to Putin? God, what a great web address to have. So the Red Cross issue, let me tell you about. The Ukrainians, a lot of Ukrainians are complaining that they're not getting aid from the international aid groups in general, that the aid groups, that the money is stuck, the supplies are stuck, the aid is stuck. They have been getting money from, people like me and not even people like me, people like you. As I said at the start of the show, thank you, Annie, I appreciate that. At the start of the show, we've collected almost $15,000 now, $14,909.61, I believe is the exact amount. But we've collected as donations from you guys, given to our friend Vlad in Ukraine, a Ukrainian who's displaced there. The initial money he was using for his family, because they needed to buy a hotel for a month, housing isn't free. People were surprised when I told them that. They have to pay $100 a month for a hotel because there's 200,000 refugees in a town of 100,000 people. So the town now has 300,000 people. Credit cards are now no longer usable, so people can't use credit cards. Everyone wants cash, but what seems to still be usable is your PayPal cards. PayPal, God bless PayPal. A week ago or so, maybe 10 days ago, PayPal finally decided to let Ukrainians accept PayPal payments from abroad. So as soon as PayPal started doing that, we set something up on my TikTok and you guys on YouTube as well. And frankly, I'm sure you Facebook folks and Twitter folks helped as well. And people just started donating to Vlad directly, or if you don't have PayPal, you can put it to my Venmo or my Cash App, which is in the link in my profile. The mods can put it on YouTube right now, the link to my profile. But for TikTok, just go to my profile. There's a link that says like beacons.ai. You can click that. You'll see the paragraph about Vlad, and it gives you Vlad's PayPal address. Or you can use my Cash App and Venmo. And if you send it to me, just say for Vlad. I've been sending 100% of it to Vlad, about 3,000 or maybe even 4,000 now or so to Vlad from me. Vlad's total he's received is around 15. And he's been helping individual Ukrainian families who are in need, because the other problem is not only do they not have cash and they have to have cash, nobody's working. Like their jobs are gone. I mean, literally, it's as if you picked up and went somewhere else. You're trying to live in someone's house. You don't have food. You can't pay for anything. There's 11 of you. One of Vlad's friends, he did a video for us on TikTok. He's living in a sauna with 11 people. There's a small sauna. And it's a very cute little sauna. It looks like a vacation house, but it's the size of my living room, and it's a sauna. 11 people are living there. So what they're doing, which is why I'm just doing a final pitch here if folks want to donate. And again, all this money is going to Vlad to help the people over there. We're not taking a cut. He's not taking a cut. But what they did yesterday is they found a group in Kharkiv, the second largest city of Ukraine, northeast. Vlad is originally from there, had to flee with his wife and 3-year-old daughter and the grandparents and all of that. But the Russians have been blowing that town up for a month now. Kharkiv, I like that hat. Kharkiv, and people can't get food. They can't get medicine because, again, they can't get out of their houses. They can't get anywhere, and they can't get clothing. And that's what I was saying earlier, because you pack up and you go to the bomb shelter, you don't bring a change of clothes. So somebody has set up I don't want to say a business, but a volunteer network where they're cooking food. And there were these beautiful photos on Instagram of the food and stuff, cooking food and delivering food, clothing, and medicine to people in Kharkiv. And people are also doing this around the country. And Vlad has been giving them money to buy the food, medicine, and food, buy the food and then make it, because they're buying supplies and then making big amounts of food, because obviously you get more for your money, and the food and medicine. And then running out in literally these air raids and delivering this to people. So that is where your money's been going to. I'm not just saying give to our guys, but if you can find people who you're finding out for sure are getting money directly, do it. But yeah, the Red Cross has been criticized for that. They've also been criticized because basically everything the Ukrainians are asking for, the Red Cross is saying, oh, we can't do that. And, oh, there's a war going on. After the war, we're happy to help you. at the same time, the head of the Red Cross goes and meets, I think yesterday, with the Russian foreign minister and does this big photo op, this big photo event, shaking hands and laughing. I mean, all that was missing was a glass of champagne in this guy's hand. It was the most politically, marketing dumbest move for the Red Cross to do. First of all, you're meeting freaking dictators who are killing tens of thousands of people. And displaced a quarter of the Ukrainian population is displaced. I think they're saying 3 million may have left the country now, of 43 million, but a quarter, so you're talking 10 million, 11 million, are now homeless they're living somewhere else in the country because they had to leave their homes because they were being bombed. And the Red Cross shows up and starts shaking the Russians' hands and laughing in a handshake for the cameras as if they're meeting their old best friends. Very bad. Very bad. Very bad. So, yeah, not good. All right, guys, it's 8:20. I am cutting you off from the questions. As I said, I'm trying to go about an hour and 15 of the substance. Most of the people I follow on TikTok go about an hour. But I find an hour 50 because I like to do my intro and stuff. I think an hour 50. This was good today because today I think my intro was only about 10, 15 minutes anyway of the topic. So just to sum up, pretty good day for Ukraine. The Russians are in trouble. It's not like the Russians are going to lose, but they're on the defensive. The Ukrainians have done much better in the north by Kyiv, the capital. They're pushing the Russians back. In the south, there's at least initial news reports that the Ukrainians have pushed the Russians out of some of the cities, or at least the Ukrainians might be taking back some of the cities in the south, which is big news. And Russia made the big announcement today that it has won the first phase of the war and that it is now going to focus on eastern Ukraine, and that everybody who thought Russia wanted to invade the rest of Ukraine and take the capital and take Kharkiv in the northeast were just crazy people. So basically, Russia admitted that it lost at this point, the first phase of the war, because Russia did. They absolutely wanted to take at least Kyiv, the capital. We already know from their war plans, they wanted to take the capital in 3 days. And that's why they didn't bring enough troops. It's probably why they didn't bring enough medics either, because they thought they were going to come in by air and I guess blow the thing up, and that was it. And boy, as I call them, the honey badger Ukrainians had something else in mind. So pretty amazing. So, all right, guys, I'm going to hang. Usually we hang for another 15 minutes and chat. Thank you for joining. You don't have to go though, but thank you for the hearts. You can keep sending hearts. I don't mind on TikTok. The sorting hat is always my favorite, as you know. But I just sort of hang and we chat for fun here. Sasha's being good. Sasha's in her bed. My little dog Sasha. Actually, I've been trying to show like a cute Sasha photo or video every day. My little 10-pound Yorkie Bichon dog. We had a bad thunderstorm the other night, so we had a little bit of an issue there, but she's better now. But as I've told folks, this is the part of the show where we switch from the politics and we just hang out and chat for 15, 20 minutes or so. And it's fun. We just kind of all hang out and stuff, which is kind of neat. Thank you. And thank you for Lisa. I appreciate that. Let me find you another good Sasha. There's lots of pictures, but I like to show the videos too. Actually, this one's pretty good because, this is early on though. This is Sasha as a puppy when I first got her. I will show the YouTube folks can see. Let me get the, oh no, there you go. YouTube, there. I'm going closer on YouTube scenario, so it's not blown out. And then you guys, that's Sasha as a puppy. Just adorable. So that was like 10 weeks old, much darker. Notice how much darker she was. And real quick, just to compare. So to compare, this is Sasha today. Look at how her color has totally changed. How now she's like cream colored. And actually, she's almost kind of apricot colored too. I'll find one quick video. Once you get me going, I'm laughing at these pictures. Let me find a quick little of I've got my like best of Sasha videos here. Here we go. Where's it good? Actually, this one cracked me up because I couldn't, no, not this one. Let me find. 1 second. Was it this one? I think it is this one. This one cracked me up because I couldn't figure out what the hell she was doing. I was looking on my balcony and I like to grow a lot of plants. And for some crazy reason, she kept sitting in one of my pots. And I was looking like, she's only 10 pounds. And I was like, what the hell are you doing? So this is Sasha. I'm looking out my window and I kept not having my camera. This time I had my camera and I was like, oh my God. So watch this.
I caught her. In general, about sexual harassment and sexual assault. It's a very serious matter.
Yeah.
There's no place in the
I
caught you.
She's just sitting. See, then she sees me. She's just sitting in the pot, enjoying the air. That's the TV that was playing in the background.
She's either going to come down or she's going to rotate and lay down.
Yeah, see, just look at it. And then what she liked to do is she then would spin around and then lay down on the dirt. And I think it was like her version of laying out on the grass or something. It was the funniest damn thing. Yeah, just chilling. It was just the funniest damn thing. Oh, my hair. And I finally made a hair appointment for Tuesday. Thank God. Thank God. The person I go to was booked all weekend. I booked now. Isn't back till Tuesday. So I was like, all right. It's fun long, but my God, I don't usually have my hair this long. And it's short and curly and everything else. And it's been doing a whole nother thing now. Not that we care, but it's just gets annoying. God, I don't know how people deal with hair on their forehead. It's annoying. What else we got going, guys? So, what else we got going? Been having fun with the trolls on TikTok. Yeah, sorry, TikTok. You apparently had a lot of trolls tonight. I do have a number of TikTok monitors, though, now, so that at least helps. So for you guys, I hope. Actually, and thanks for that. TikTok, I will say, by the way, thank you. We always have a very good crowd on YouTube that hangs out. And like right now, it's about 180 people and very good and do the comments. TikTok, we've still got like 1.2, 1,200 or 1,300 people hanging out just to chat. And that is actually, I would say, a record for this part of the show where we're all just hanging out for fun, just chatting. So that's kind of nice to see. I like seeing that from you guys. That's good. Actually, I'm going to put on my glasses. The one problem with TikTok is I can just see the questions on YouTube without my glasses, but on TikTok, it's hard to see them. Yeah, Sasha's absolutely adorable. Yes. A Russian name, I guess. I never thought of that, but I couldn't figure out how to name her. I had all of these ideas for names for dogs, and they were all for male dogs. If she was a boy dog, I was going to name her Bart, like the Simpsons, because I just liked how in The Simpsons, Bart, because then I could call her Bart. I love that for a dog name. But she was a female, and I couldn't think of any female names. And finally, one of my cousins, one of my sister's nieces, through marriage, was like, "Hey, Portugal," was like, how about we call her Sasha? And I said, "Oh, Sasha's good. I like that." Yep, we're at the No More Politics name. My YouTube channel is John Aravosis DC. So my last name, you've got it in the handle there on TikTok. You Twitter folks already know, but John with an H, John Aravosis, and then DC, because I live in Washington, D.C. So one word and you'll find me. And we do them there as well. And one of the nice things about doing it there, I'm still not convinced that TikTok like lets me keep them, but I don't think TikTok lets you see them afterwards. Whereas on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter, you actually can watch this afterwards. And for people who are at work, I think some of the people really like going and, they can watch the 10, 15-minute summary, that kind of stuff, which is nice. So at least with that, you can still do it. What else? Oh, God, I keep doing this. Every time I'm used to doing TikTok, I then go to my computer screen and I try to scroll on my laptop with my finger. I just did it again. Maggie from The Simpsons. People with Maggie. I do not have a favorite DC restaurant. You know what? I am one of the bad people who thinks that DC is not a great restaurant town, even though it's gotten much better over the years. I am from Chicago. Chicago is a ridiculously good restaurant town, but DC, not so great. I do not work as a lawyer. Nope, I've got my law degree. I actually took my bar exam in Illinois because I felt like I was feeling guilty that I didn't take my bar, like it made me a bad lawyer or something. So I passed my bar in Illinois, but I don't practice. No, there was kind of no reason to, because I've always liked politics. I mean, like what I'm doing with you guys right now, I've been doing variations of this since 1989 when I graduated law school and graduate school. It's always been politics, domestic, international, something, and marketing too, because then I got involved with the internet. So I've done a ton of web marketing and online marketing, and even for companies like Priceline back in the day, like in 2000 when Priceline was still pretty early, I did some or maybe 1998 even, did some consulting for Priceline, helping them redesign their website. So I've done a lot of marketing internet with a lot of politics thrown in, and thus today, politics and internet and all the fun stuff with you guys. Street vendor card. I work at home. Somebody's asking my favorite street vendor cart in DC. I work at home. There are no street vendors. I've been to some downtown. They were good, but I can't remember now. There's some really good ones at is it Lafayette Square? I think it's Lafayette Square. Yeah, where they've got like a ton of street vendors, and we went and had a very good lunch. But this was before COVID, so I don't even remember now. But yeah, being from Chicago, I agree with you, Music Girl. Being from Chicago, I've just never felt like the food here was very good. In Chicago, I don't want to say it's hard to find a bad restaurant, but I always say like my hometown in Chicago, which suburb, any typical suburb of Chicago with 50,000 people has got like 5 to 7 to die for pizza restaurants. 5 or 7, I'd say at least, to die for. And these are like small towns of 50, 60, 70,000 people. Forget Chicago itself. Food is king in Chicago. And it just, no, you wouldn't be muted. Well, you won't be muted if you ask a political question. We'll be nice about that. I just may not answer it. Because I'm now at the phase where I'm trying to rely. I always say the French have a great word for this, décontracter, but to décontract. And it's to, decontract, but I guess I like the idea of like contraction and then decontraction, and it means to relax. They also say relax, which I think is funny, but I like decontract because it just has that sense to me of like the gears coming apart and just like, ooh. So yes, Kentucky. I've never been to Kentucky at all, actually. I don't think. I've traveled to a lot of states. I actually enjoy being to these. Haleo, I can't remember. I've been here so long. I can't remember if I've been to Haleo or not. I don't remember now. I just don't remember. I just can't remember. I'd have to like Google it and see where it is to remember if I'd been there. That's also a problem, I think, of being here too long, too many years. But I've not been to Kentucky. I do like I like visiting sort of smaller states and smaller towns. I mean, I love big cities. I'm from Chicago, or the Chicago area. DC is a little small for me. I lived in New York for 2 years, other than working for truly the devil incarnate at the United Nations, which is a workplace entirely made up of devil incarnates, most horrific workplace on the planet. As we said, once COVID, I was going to say, and I've never been to Vancouver, dying to go to Vancouver. Once we are done with Ukraine, we'll do chats about other things, and I'll do one about working at the UN because a lot of folks want to work there. And I've always said I will never help anybody ever work at the UN again because it is the most vile, vile, vile place on the planet. If you think the Red Cross is bad, the complaints they're getting, I wouldn't give a dime to the UN ever for anything ever again. But I have not been to Australia. I've been to Germany. Germany, ironically, I have been to Hamburg because a friend was from there, and I just like spent a weekend with him. I was in Bonn, the capital, but this is back in 1989. And get this, early December of 1989, like first, second, and third, we went to Germany, went to Bonn, and then went to Berlin, then went to East Berlin, and then went to Leipzig and went there for a night. We got to meet with Kurt Masur in Leipzig, who was the famous conductor who then left and went to New York, I believe, after that. I got to sort of see East Germany, which was absolutely wild. And I was in Berlin. This is now just a couple of weeks after the wall had opened up. The wall was still there. The East German soldiers were still on top of the walls with their machine guns, but you could break pieces of the wall and wave at them. So I got pictures of the East German soldiers. They were very friendly enough for East German soldiers. Grabbed a huge, big piece of the wall. Just fascinating. But never been to Ireland. Ireland's another one I'm dying to go to. Absolutely dying to go to. Like I said, so Germany, I've been to Germany. Although Germany, I've never done like the tour of the, I say chateau, whatever you call them in Germany, the palaces, the Burgs? Burg is a town in Germany. Just those beautiful castles you guys have in Germany. I've never done. It's funny. I've traveled a lot, but I feel like I haven't seen, like I've been to the UK, but I've seen London. I visited a friend who lived in Frinton-on-Sea of all places. So I spent a week there, but I was visiting a friend from school, and I had not been to Australia, dying to go there too. And I went to Edinburgh that I loved, absolutely loved Edinburgh, which then made me want to go to Scotland because I've always would like to go to Scotland. I've been to Greece a lot. I like Greece, of course. My family's Greek. So yes, I've been to Greece many times. but I've never been to Ireland. I've always been dying to go to Ireland. Just the accent alone. I like going to places. The castles are Borgs. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, that's what I was thinking. Then I was thinking of Borgs as being, it's a different Borg, like Bourg. Or is it used like for both, maybe, Doc says, for castles? Stadt. Oh, that's true, Stadt. But I think of Borgs like Strasbourg, but it's because they were naming it after the castle, not the city. That's why then. Okay. So Borgs were castles. Then I knew there was something in my mind saying Borgs in German were castles. I do not speak German. Always would have liked to. I just never studied it. And then it almost became I've been to Russia. I visited the Soviet Union in February of 1984 at the height of the Cold War with Ronald Reagan. That will be a story for a TikTok live, YouTube live, Facebook live that we'll do, because that was a fascinating visit. I mean, and I've never really even digested that story to tell it. I've always told people little stories about it. But I mean, the very short story is I was studying abroad in Paris, doing my junior year abroad in America. In that age, people probably still do now, I guess, but we had just started, Americans were not as international as other places, partially because it's very far for us to visit. Like to go to Europe is a much bigger trip for us than for you to go across the border to Switzerland or something. Anyway, we started taking our third year of college, if we could, and going to study in another country. Well, I chose Paris because I wanted to learn French. And while I was there, the dollar was very good. It was like dollar would get you 10 francs. I think it was really good exchange rate. So I would buy these tour packages, and I got a tour package to go to Russia for 10 days for like $350 to go to the Soviet Union, Moscow and Leningrad, all expenses paid for the travel, the hotel, the food, everything. $350. And I was like, 10 days, Soviet Union? Yes! Height of the Cold War. And it was absolutely fascinating. And like I said, lots to tell you. We made friends. We got to watch the secret police arrest our friends. Lots of different things. Horrifying, interesting, nice people, bad government. Froze our asses off. Don't go to Moscow and St. Petersburg. It was Leningrad back then. Don't go to Moscow and St. Petersburg in February. I'll tell you that much at least. And the best part was the Russians sell ice cream on the street in February. It's literally far below freezing, and the crazy Russians are selling ice cream. And I'm trying to think, was it like molodezhnoi? Something like that? The word in Russian for ice cream? I had to learn the word in Russian. Molodezhnoi? I know moloko or whatever is milk, but they were, and you'd buy it because what the hell? I mean, you're in Russia, but literally the idea of buying ice cream on the street when it is far below freezing. We don't do that in America. Chicago, you don't do that. I mean, that's crazy. But yeah, molodezhnoi, I want to say. I don't remember. But yeah, Edinburgh. No, I know. I was in Edinburgh. That's what I said, but I didn't get to the rest of Scotland. What I said was, after going to Edinburgh, I said, God, I've got to go to Scotland, meaning I've got to go up to the north and the Highlands and all the other places, because as Americans, of Scotland, but I think it's like every country. You've got sort of the A-list, and when I say A-list, I mean the first places on your list. And as Americans, it's always Paris, Italy, Paris, Rome, not even Italy, Rome, London. Beyond that, we don't do Canada. So you don't think, like, I've never been to Montreal. I've been to Canada several times, dying to go to Montreal because I speak French. Have never been to Montreal just because, like, it's this weird thing. Like, it's so close you don't go. I don't know what that means. Mexico's a fabulous place to visit. I guess a lot of us go there, but for us, it's going to Europe is the big dream vacation for Americans. Paris is the dream vacation. And then France, Italy, maybe Germany, questionable. Greece, because going to the Greek islands, maybe. So anyway, it's a whole other deal. I have a friend in New Zealand now, though, so I ought to visit since he's there. Molodezhnoi. Okay, I was right then. I was right. I knew it was something like that. It's funny. I studied Russian when I was in college back in the early 1980s, and I had a horrible teacher, and I couldn't get it down, and it's such a hard. Netherlands I've been to. Love the Netherlands. Oh, my God. My favorite town I saw some events in the Netherlands. I was visiting a friend of mine who was working for NATO in Brussels, and visited him and his family like for a week when I was in Paris. And we did a day excursion because there was a festival going on in Ghent, Ghent. And I'm already forgetting now what the town's name was in. It's got another name. I'm forgetting the other name. Whether Ghent is the, I don't even know. Whatever the other name is for Ghent. But there's two names because French and the Dutch and all of that, or not Dutch, whatever they say. Well, Dutch, yeah. In Brussels, not Netherlands. I'm saying, oh my God, Netherlands. Excuse me. I'm talking about Belgium right here. But we go to Ghent. But I've been meaning to go to the Netherlands too. I haven't traveled around much at all. But we go to Ghent. And I so fell in love with Ghent, and they had this little festival going on, and the guys we call it the Oompa Band, like the guys walking around on the street with the big drums. It was so lovely. I got a Belgian waffle that I'd never had in my life. Oh my God. The Belgian waffle was like eating a chocolate chip cookie fresh out of the oven. I thought I was going to die. This thing was so delicious. Well, I got home. I did a big write-up on my blog about Ghent because I just loved it. And I had all these photos. So I did like a photo essay of Ghent. Well, some local paper in Ghent found my write-up and was so happy that like this American, I loved it. I said that this American fell in love with Ghent, that they reprinted what I wrote in like Dutch or whatever, or Flamand or whatever the language is in there, and took a bunch of my photos, which was totally fine. And these people discovered my Facebook page, and I had hundreds of people from Ghent going to my Facebook page and thanking me for saying such nice things about their town. It was the sweetest thing you've ever seen. I mean, so I am dying to go back to Ghent at some place. It was just, and again, like I said, lovely town. Oh my God. This sort of I was saying, to me, it reminded me a little bit of Venice without even though there were a lot of tourists, not quite like Venice, but of these, the beautiful river and the buildings right on the river, and not Venice and Amsterdam, absolutely. Amsterdam, it really reminded me of. But the people were just nice, and oh my God, those waffles. Oh, I always thought a Belgian waffle would be like a waffle with chocolate on it. I swear to God, it was a warm, gooey chocolate chip cookie, and then with schlag on the top. I don't know if you guys call it schlag. That's one of the only German words I ever learned was mit Schlag, because everything I'd buy desserts, I was like, put whipping cream on top. Schlag. Oh my God. Yeah, reading hieroglyphics, that's another thing I would love to learn to do. Jessica Cookson just mentioned that. All right, guys, I'm going to hang out for another minute, and then I'm going to go. We're at 8:40, so we're at my hour and 40 mark, so I need to chill out. So today is Friday. So tomorrow we are going to do 1 p.m. Eastern time US. Sometimes that doesn't get as much of a turnout. Sometimes it does. Let's see what happens. For you guys in Europe or wherever, that is 1,300 hours here, which means 1,700 hours UTC, assuming your time doesn't change tomorrow. Our time changed a few weeks ago. I have no idea for you if tomorrow is one of those weird, or whether you got another week in Europe and the rest of the world. But it will be. So the safest thing to say is it is at 1 p.m. 1,300 hours Eastern time US tomorrow. We'll be checking in again. 1 Eastern time. Yep. We may or may not have as much to update you on. Let's see, because obviously there's a little less time between now and then. There's not even 12 hours, so we'll see. But if there isn't as much, we'll have more Q&A and just talk about more generally what's going on with the war if there isn't as much. I'm still sort of seeing what times work on the weekends. I am trying, because this time is what works best for the Americans, who are a lot of my audience. It obviously isn't as good for the Europeans. So I very much appreciate the Europeans who have come. Ooh, we have movement from Sasha. Interesting. Oh, but then she went into my bedroom. I heard her shake, but she went into my bedroom. She's getting away. But in any case, yeah, so tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern time, we'll do this. And again, I'm still kind of seeing maybe Sunday, we could even try a later time on Sunday and see, is that a little bit better? Washington, D.C. time. Oh, and thank you, call name. It's 1 p.m. Washington. When I say 1 p.m., I mean 1,300 hours in Washington, D.C. Saturday. That's the way to look at it. So you can Google, use your web browser and Google what the time difference is, and it'll tell you. But it's 1,300 hours in Washington, D.C. is the time we're doing it tomorrow. And I always do it for Google because I would find out what time it is in Paris and stuff, and it'll tell me. So, and often they have calculators too, so you can even look at the calculator. But the other way is I'm going to put up a YouTube notice. I'm going to put up a TikTok notice. in the next 15 minutes. So you can always click that for it to remind you if you're around. And like I said, maybe Sunday we'll try a little bit of a later time or something, and see if that gets us anywhere. I don't know, maybe a little bit later in the afternoon is better for European. Meaning like maybe 4 o'clock U.S. time gets Europeans at night, but maybe at 9 or 10 o'clock your time that you like. I don't know. I'm trying to find times that we can incorporate more of you guys from around the world, and times that aren't as, because I appreciate you guys being here. This is really late for you. And I at least for a lot of you, for you New Zealanders and stuff, I'm not sure what time it is for you all, but for the Europeans, it's late, and I appreciate you doing this. So, all right, guys. So I will see y'all. 5 p.m. UK isn't a problem. See, but what I also don't know, because Tyler is just saying 1 p.m. Washington, D.C. is 5 p.m. UK. I don't quite know, like, is that a time on a Saturday people are around? It's weird on weekends, so we'll figure it out. Yeah, whatever. Hold on. I'm doing this myself here. One moment. This will be my final act. Bye-bye. Somebody just ran around and was writing, just so you know in the future, yeah, he's not here anymore. Somebody in the comments was writing, "Ura, ura, ura." It's a Russian expression, and it's an expression they use to cheer on their troops. Yeah, well, what's the expression you use to cheer on your troops when they're dead? You might have to figure that one out. But in any case, so I blocked that person because we don't need people being rude. We are trying to make this a friendly, even with regards to the Russians. We don't go after the Russian people. We certainly go after the Russian military, though. All right, guys, thanks so much. And the moderators, thank you so much. I know this is a lot of work for you guys, and especially on TikTok. You're really doing God's work on TikTok with the URA people, so I appreciate that. All right, guys, signing off. See you tomorrow, 1300 Eastern Time U.S., 1 p.m. Eastern Time U.S. See you then. All right, bye, guys. All right, signing off, Ticker Talkers. Boom, boom, and you all as well. Have a good night.